it's been super, super difficult and really rewarding the last 4.5, 5 months of shooting. You know, I haven't been shooting a bow that long, but I've really never been that curious to shoot long distances. You know, if you're unwilling to do that, just like you said, like, you really need to reassess what you're doing out there. This is Trevor Thompson. You're listening to the Stickbow Chronicles.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the Stickbow Chronicles, brought to you by Black Widow Bows. I'm Rob Patuto, and try it a little more lively.
Blake Hunter.
Wow, there you go. Now you sound like you're awake.
Barely.
Oh, how's it going, buddy?
It's going good, man.
Well,
going good.
Yeah, we got, 2 days ago, and now today we've had some really cool guests on, like like way cooler. Well, that's easy.
Way cooler than us.
Yeah, right. That's just everybody, though. That's just everybody.
No, it's been cool, man.
Yeah.
Had Lee. Wait, is that gonna drop before this one?
I don't know. Sure. Yeah, we had Levi Morgan the other day.
Yeah, I had Levi Morgan, and then today's guest was Trevor Thompson from Black Rifle Coffee, and just dipping his toes into the stickbow water, kind of new to hunting in general. And man, he's hit the ground running. It was a great conversation.
Yeah. I find it fascinating to hear somebody's story, who didn't grow up a hunter, who gets into hunting, and then, he's in with a pretty good group of guys there, with Dudley and all those guys. And then after 2 years, he's got a sick bow in his hand. And yeah, I just hearing that progression and his approach to it, and what lights the fire is pretty cool to hear.
Yeah, and just how quickly the progression happened, because that's not typical. Usually, you don't find guys who progress from compound to stickbow that quickly. So,
I don't think SEALs are just your average people, anyway. So they probably progress a lot.
Not.
They probably progress a lot of stuff a lot quicker than the rest of us.
No, it was interesting too to listen to him talk about how his mindset from and things that he learned in the SEAL teams translates to hunting and the things that he does now. It was pretty cool.
Yep, that was a great conversation. And I'll just, as a precursor, we've had some audio struggles, and this was the second time. So if the audio is a little bit rough, stick with it, because it does get better. And I hate that.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be all right, because it was a great episode, and I will just have to roll with it if it's not not too bad.
Yeah. So anyways, you got anything?
No, I don't think so. Just make sure everybody is sending in their entries to ihuntcloseofficial@gmail.com for the ihuntclose trad kill 2020 giveaway. Y'all have heard us tease that on a couple other episodes. Make sure you're sending your entries in trad kill 2020 from January 1st to December 1st. Any trad kill, 1 entry per person. Make sure you're sending those in.
Absolutely. And you got anything else?
I don't think so, man. I think that's
All
it.
Right. Well, big thanks to the sponsors, the Footed Shaft, Kifaru International, Selway Archery, and of course, Black Widow Bows, and now Iron Will Broadheads. If you like what you're hearing, please support those companies. If you don't like what you're hearing, I'm not sure why you're here, but good luck hunting anyways. Roger out.
I'll plug them right away, because they've been nothing but good to me, and everybody there is a hunter. And I've been working at Black Rifle Coffee for just over 2 years, and it's a veteran-owned, veteran-operated business out of Salt Lake City and San Antonio, Texas. And the mission there is to employ as many veterans, give as much money to charity, make the best damn cup of coffee that we can possibly make, at a good price while still paying the farmers what they deserve.
Nice. And this is kind of an off the wall question, but roasters, where do you guys get your roasters, and do you build them?
So I can't recall the name of the roasters, but we do run our own roasting. We do all of our own roasting in two places here in Salt Lake City, and then we're kind of moving the bulk of our roasting to Manchester, Tennessee, which is just outside of, I want to say, Nashville.
Okay. You know, I don't know. The years slip by, but I'm in Sandpoint, Idaho, and gosh, I don't know, around 2008, 9, a company started building roasters here in town, and they're actually like a big deal. They build the roasters. So I was just curious. It's called Dietrich, and it's just amazing how they build them. So I was just curious.
So I do know that we have some Dietrich roasters.
Really?
Yeah.
It's fascinating walking through that.
Yeah. They're cool machines.
Oh, yeah. And then when you drive by, all you can smell is coffee.
Yeah. I mean, you said the name, and it's just so peculiar that I remembered it.
Yeah. So where'd you grow up?
I grew up 20-30 minutes from the beach in Los Angeles, California. Wow. So not hunting central, not for a lack of my parents wanting it to happen. Both my grandparents grew up on Depression era farms, so they all grew up hunting small game, the occasional deer. And then my family's been in the country for, close to 500 years. Like, we've first got here in the 1640s, so we've been basically hunting game all the way across the nation for a long time. But in the last, say, 100 years, like, it just didn't happen as much because that's what happens. The food gets easier to find, and it just doesn't become part of the culture. And that's okay. And I really got exposed to what kind of lifestyle hunting can provide by a lot of the guys from the South and the Midwest that I served with in the SEAL teams. And, man, they will proselytize about hunting some whitetail.
Of course.
Kind of popular over there.
Oh, yeah.
No, you can trace your lineage back. Did you say the 1600s?
Yeah, 1640s.
Where at? What part?
So we actually had a stowaway come over the Atlantic in I think I was told, an apple barrel.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That would be a long ride.
So we were on both sides of the Civil War, on the winning side of the Revolutionary. Nice. All the way through. Yeah.
Nice.
Cool, man. So what is it exactly that you do for Black Rifle, just to back up for a second so people kind of know your background with them?
I'm essentially a catch-all. So I do some podcast work for them. I do a little bit of in front of the camera work. Mostly I do stills and a little bit of video for them. So a lot of the advertising, product, lifestyle, outdoor imagery. And the reason being, they picked me up because they knew that I already did a lot of those activities like skiing, mountain biking, off-road driving, that sort of stuff, shooting, obviously.
Right.
Got into bow hunting and fly fishing.
Yeah, you take some awesome photos, man. I really enjoy looking at them. I dabble here and there. I'm kind of fly by the seat of my pants, but yeah, your photography is awesome.
I appreciate it. It's kind of like shooting a bow. It's like the more you do it, the better you get.
Yeah, for sure.
I got a question for you now. The podcast, plug that for a minute.
So we've been putting together the Free Range American podcast at Black Rifle, that's getting spearheaded by Evan and Logan. So Evan Hafer and Logan Stark, and then I've been on there quite a bit, as well as Matt Best and Jared Taylor, JT. And the idea there is really showing people that the American dream is not dead, and we can keep doing it through adventure, and we can inspire people to go on their own adventures. And there's nothing that's out of reach if you really want it bad enough.
Yeah. What the cover for the Free Range American has an arrowhead on it. What's the story with that?
Free Range American was started by Andy Stumpf and John Dudley, and now they're still involved. So obviously with Dud's involvement, an arrowhead was necessary, but also, an arrowhead is a projectile. And Evan likes to say he's a projectile enthusiast, and everybody that's kind of involved is a projectile enthusiast. I'll throw a rock and I'll fire all projectiles, and we love them all. And so for it to be in there and for it to be such a deep part of human history was an obvious choice for us to have as a logo item.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Everybody bow hunts?
Yep. And if they don't, they will be.
I guess they converted pretty quick.
Yeah, pretty fast.
So when exactly did you start bow hunting? I guess you started with a compound. When was that you started, if you hadn't already said that?
So I hadn't. So I was bugging Andy. Andy Stumpf and I have been friends for a while, and I was bugging him about learning to bow hunt. Not trying to saddle up to Dudley, but I just was curious about it because, after spending 9 years in the SEAL teams, I had no interest in rifle hunting. I didn't understand the culture because I didn't grow up in it. So I was like, well, if I'm going to do it, I want to do something a little bit difficult that I feel like would be neat to do and a new skill. And then I was driving back from doing a race, like a running race, and Andy's like, hey man, can you drop everything and make a bear hunt on the phone? I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. He goes, all right, cool. Well, you need to be in Kansas next week to learn how to use a bow for a turkey.
That's pretty funny.
That was 2 springs ago that happened. So 2018, I guess. Mm-hmm. 17, yeah.
And I guess Dudley was kind of shaped and molded you up from the get-go, huh?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So he hands me a Carbon Defiant and all the arrows. Everything was made. He had me go to Bob Fromm's place in San Diego and get my draw measured, and then he had me get measured again because he couldn't believe my draw length. And
what is it?
So it's somewhere. It's between 29 and a half and 30 inches, but I'm 5'9".
That is a long draw length for that height.
Yeah, kind of a monkey. So
you don't have to bend over to tie your shoes.
So
I got to Kansas, and he walked me through all the steps and handed me a silverback, like a back tension release, and just got through the whole process. And immediately I understood why guys like it. This is so tactile and so damn difficult that I have to do this. And I went home and practiced every day so much that I got tendonitis in my bow arm elbow. He's like, yeah, dude, you need to freaking relax. I understand, that practice makes you better, but you're going to hurt yourself. And it all came together well because a month and a half later, I ended up shooting this bear in BC. And
you say that was the first big game animal you killed? The
first animal, period. Besides the fish.
Was that difficult for you? How'd that work?
Not particularly. Not coming from my previous profession. I understood how much respect you have for another being life. Whether it's a rabbit or a person. Obviously there is a spectrum there, and the bear's not going to get up and be like, "Hey man, no, seriously, you let me go." It was a deep thing to do, but man, did it feel good to do it the right way, because it was a double long through the heart. That thing piled up in 15 yards. Yeah,
so that's pretty intense for your first critter, a bear. That's pretty intense.
Yeah, I mean, I like hunting predators.
didn't catch the metaphor there, buddy.
Gotcha.
I'm trying to think if it was, I think it's Jack Carr. He follows the Stickbow Chronicles on Instagram, and I think it was him I was messaging back and forth, and I was kind of throwing a jab. Yeah, I was kind of throwing a jab at him, like, hey man, I can't believe all you SEAL guys, and all you ex-military guys don't step up to the plate and pick up a stickbow. As he's kind of throwing a little jab at him. Looks you guys are up for the challenge.
I'll tell him. I'll tell him we talked about this.
Well, I actually had a buddy, Randy Cooling, sent him a Black Widow bow and arrows all tuned and stuff to give it a try. So he said when he's done, I guess he's working on his 4th book there. And he said, when I got that wrapped up, I'm going to give it a try. So
yeah, he is. I'll go up to the house. I'm up there every once in a while.
Oh yeah. I'm on that 3rd book. I haven't been able to get into it because he sent me the book saying, "Hey, there's some traditional archery stuff in this. I thought you might get a kick out of." But I got through the first. I got through the first 2. I don't have a lot of time to read, so I'm sitting on that 3rd one. I think it'll bring it to hunting camp and do some time there.
It's good. I like them all.
Yeah. So you're up in BC. You shot the bear. That was 2 years ago.
Yeah, 2.5 years ago. It was spring bear.
Okay, so then you come back and hunt Utah then that fall?
No, actually, I was living in San Diego at the time. So I flew home with all the meat, and then, about 10 months later, so the New Year's of the following New Year's, I moved up to Utah. So I tried putting in for tags in California, and man, their system is such a mess that I didn't end up hunting there at all. So I ended up hunting in Texas and doing a few other hunts around the country. I did hogs, but that was pretty much the only thing I did that year was that, because I didn't get a whitetail in Texas. I shot 2 rabbits instead. They just weren't coming.
Same thing.
Just weren't playing around. It's not as easy as it seems. Everybody poo-poos on Texas and then come down here and it's not what all it's cracked up to be.
Like, wait a second, 4 days and I don't see a deer? This is absurd.
That's funny.
But they brag on their rabbits. Everything in Texas is better. I'm sure their rabbits are better.
We got big rabbits, man.
Yeah, well, and what was funny was there were like some good old boys staying at the cabin. There's like 2 cabins there at that place, and there's some good old boys next to us that they got quite a chuckle out of me bringing back 2 rabbits to cook.
Hey man, there's deer out there.
That's why I'm like, it's a challenge. I don't know, man.
I got to hunt in Texas one time, and me and my buddy were leaving. It was a Sunday morning. We're trying to get to the airport. We stopped in the middle of nowhere at this convenience store. I'm dying for coffee. And of course, you're going to get the rankest, nastiest coffee. I go walking in there, and I don't know how old this lady was. I'm going to guess she was 55, but she looked 75. And she had tobacco stains running down both corners of her mouth. And she looks at me and smiles, and her teeth just look like chocolate chiclets. And all I could think of is some kid going, "Mom, do I have to kiss Grandma?" It just looked nasty. It's like, oh man, get me out of here. But
so do you go ahead, Rob?
No, I was gonna say I don't know what you thought about Texas, Trevor, but man, I had a blast down there. That is just some cool country.
It's cool. I've been down there to hunt since then. I shot 2 pretty nice whitetail last year there.
That was going to be my next question, is if you've been back, because it certainly can be, go to the right places at the right times. It can be a good way to get some solid experience, especially with pigs.
Oh yeah. We shot a number of pigs there and in Oklahoma. And I ended up connecting on, 2 bucks and 2 does last year.
Cool, man. Yeah. You can get a lot of experience in a pretty short amount of time in some areas, as far as just having critters in front of you.
That's for real.
Yeah. And it makes a big difference. Just having something with fur in front of you. You don't, well, at least for me anyway, it still took me 10 years to kind of figure out how to keep it together. But, so you've started to dive into the traditional archery scene here recently. Why don't you tell us, kind of what got you interested in it and go from there? Yeah.
So, a friend of mine, Jeff Shapiro, he's actually been on Andy Stump's podcast in the past. He has hunted with a longbow his whole life, and it gave it up a few years ago for a number of reasons. And on my way up to Canada last fall, I was going up there to hunt bull moose. And then on my way back, gave them a roast from the moose as a gift for letting me stay at the house. And just following that, he's like, "Hey man, I'm gonna pick the longbow up again. If you have any interest, and if you want to pick up a recurve or whatever, and come hunt elk with me, and in Montana next year, like I'll take you." And he's been super successful. I think he's filled almost every tag he's ever put in for up there, because he's hyper fit, goes way, way, way into the backcountry, and knows how to call well and how to sit still. And I agreed. I was like, yeah, sure. I'll go for this, because that seems interesting and really, really difficult. And so the first thing I did was I ordered a bear grizzly and just started whacking away on it. I mean, there's so much information online that's out there. Some of it good, some of it bad. Thank God I had a decent rapport with Aaron Schneider. So I was able to text him and ask him, like, hey, what's some decent instruction? Like, just get me started. And he sent me to Tom Clum's course. So I bought that, downloaded it, and kind of took it from there. And then the best thing you take from being in the SEAL teams is you learn how to be a student. So I knew how to, like, A equals B, and then you go from step A to step B, from step B to step C, and you don't skip, and you take the time that it takes. And it's been super, super difficult and really rewarding the last 4.5, 5 months of shooting. I've been really stoked. And now I actually have a Hoyt Satori, because I was like, I asked Aaron about it. And he's like, yeah, no, I mean, that will work great. He shoots one. I know he shoots one of them, one of the 30 bows that he has at the house or whatever. But it shoots fantastic, and I'm definitely going to end up getting a few more wooden bows, and non-takedowns, because the whole process is just fantastic. Like, I love how it's so much like actual pistol or rifle shooting offhand. Like, you're aiming with your eyeballs as opposed to a reticle. It's right. Really cool. Yeah, the whole thing is really cool.
So I want to back up just a second. So when you first picked it up, how many similarities? So you had Dudley teaching you how to shoot a compound. Yeah. And when you started to dive into Tom's course, how many similarities did you find between the correct way that Dudley showed you how to shoot a compound bow with back tension, even down to the way you aim and try and look through your pins? How much of that transferred over from shooting a compound correctly to shooting a stick bow correctly?
A lot of it does. A lot of transfers, but only if you're really capable of generalizing the information, right?
100%.
Specific mechanical stuff is going to be so different that if you try and apply, how you grip and where you grip exactly the same, as opposed to the idea of why you're gripping like that, you're getting all sorts of jacked up. And I can see that really, really quickly. Like, how you hold, just down to just how you hold the bow in your bow arm is so different mechanically, but the general idea behind the pressure you're putting on the grip itself is so similar. It's all very, very similar. And if you can hold those kinds of, like, foggy ideas together, then it all makes sense if you're trying to transfer one to the other. And it made sense to me. And I think the way Tom put this course together is great. The information's all there if you're willing to not be an idiot and skip forward. Or
you just call me an idiot. You didn't even know me. You only talked to me for 40 minutes. No, that was well put, step by step. Yeah. In building a foundation from the ground up. I mean, that's crucial. And it's super cool because guys like me been doing this for a long time. We didn't have this kind of instruction. So, folks coming from the compound and, seeking out instructions like Tom and the Push and all those guys, it's really, really leaps and bounds, putting people so much further ahead of on the learning curve.
It's very cool. And I mean, I actually do own Hunting the Hard Way and like Chuck Adams' bow hunting book, like bow hunting. And what's interesting is a lot of that information is very similar. Like, not a lot of shit has changed in in Hill's case, 50 years.
Yeah.
You know, there's some things that are changing, but it still comes down to stick, string, eyeball, and repetition.
So is it just the process of shooting the bow that's really intrigues you?
No, it's also getting really close to those animals. You know, like, I've just never been, I haven't been shooting a bow that long, but I've really never been that curious to shoot long distances. And like when I was in the SEAL teams, I loved pistol shooting. I was pretty good at it. Shooting, like, do the reticle, do the math, pow, clang, and it just didn't do it for me. I'm like, well, that's neat. I mean, I guess I could do a video game like that. Like, cool. So for me, when I started bow hunting and then now moving around with the recurve, I'm like, all right, so my effective range is now half to a third of what it was. And that's just really cool. Like, the idea of having to get within 60 feet of an elk at the farthest is just fantastic. Everything that goes into it, from like, letting your clothes stay out in the rain for weeks ahead of time, covering them in pine boughs, not moving, everything starts to get into play. And man, that is really cool.
I think it's interesting that you didn't hunt with a compound for very long before you kind of moved over into moving towards a stick bow, because a lot of times, at least from what I've seen, it may take a little while for somebody to appreciate the success that they had with the compound before they're willing to make the plunge into the stick bow. And the fact that you haven't been even shooting a compound for very long before you made the decision that your mindset may tailor more towards this weapon, and at least kicking around the idea of diving off that deep end. So I think that's pretty interesting and speaks to your mindset.
Yeah, and I've always been interested in survival and bushcraft, and so for me, even though like the woo woo type of ancient man type of genetic connection, I feel it and I understand it, and maybe that connection really is just the fact that you're actually 40 feet from an animal that's stomping at you, as opposed to 100 feet or 150 feet. And I mean, even 60 yards from an animal is really close for a rifle hunter, right? But
right.
For a guy, that's reasonable if you shoot a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. When you talk about getting close to an animal, when you call in a bull, or, you have a herd coming by you and you get like sub 10 yards and you can see their eyelashes. I've been fortunate enough to do this for a long time, but it's still, to me, what I think about is they do this for a living. They survive day in, day out, and I'm in that bubble. That's where lions strike and stuff like that. And to me, that's what just like sets it off for me.
Yeah, and when I was chasing muleys last week, I felt the urge to get that close, and there was actually a group of bedded does that I got within about 30 feet of, just as like an exercise for myself. And that was really cool to be able to just, I mean, they do that for a living. Exactly. Like, they're cautious for a living. There's shit out there all the time. And I'm like, I want to see how close I can get to these things. And then I got to 30 feet. I'm like, that's close enough.
Sometimes the does are the hardest ones to get close to anyway. No, that's fascinating. So are you going to hunt with it any this year? Are you going to try to hunt with it this year?
So I'll actually be chasing bull elk in Montana with that recurve in 4 weeks.
Okay, cool.
Nice. I was going to ask you, I had a question here, but I think I already know the answer listening to you. Watch, you get a good bull, you get any bull, and it's passing at 40, 45 yards. I mean, you can make that shot with a compound. How are you going to feel with a stick bow in your hand? You're going to let something walk.
Yeah, I'll let it walk. And the thing is, coming from my previous job, I did the same stuff with the compound. Like, I put a limit on the distance I was shooting for each hunt, and that's just where I shot. Period. If it wasn't inside that range, it just wasn't an available target for me. And I think coming from being in the teams, like, you know, that's something that I can really take away from and put into hunting, is the ability to just separate what I want and what's actually possible.
Yeah.
And be able to keep the emotions low. Like, you know, if I'm not going to connect, I'm not going to connect. Like, oh, well, I need to get inside of whatever it is, X, you know, 50, 40, 30, 20.
Yeah, and it's definitely a mindset, and you know, of course, we get lots of people that contact us and stuff, and they, hey, I'm thinking about shooting a stick bow. And one of my first, always my first question is, are you going to be able to watch an animal walk? Because so many people are about killing something, and if you're not comfortable with it, you're not going to make the right decision. Like when it is just 10 yards or 8 yards out of your maximum effective range, you can't be shooting. I mean, we got to be disciplined. So, you know, it's not for everybody. So if you can do it, man, well, jump in with both feet. But if you can't, you got to be honest with yourself.
And thinking about it, like, I even did that on the mule deer last week. So I'd been chasing muleys for 5 freaking days and got blown on a bunch of stalks. And that deer I ended up coming up on was $2. And the first time I ranged him, he was at like, but it was like a 30 degree shot into, and I was like, well, I'm not comfortable with that right now. So whether or not I was going to spook him, I was going to get inside of 50, and I got him to 48, and that's when I took the shot. Nice. And, you know, if you're unwilling to do that, just like you said, like, you really need to reassess what you're doing out there, period. Like, is your only reason to be there to be the person that says that you connected, or to take the shot that you should have taken?
Well, it's interesting because I struggled. I don't struggle as much as I did originally, but that's something I really struggled with when I first picked it up. And I'll be honest about it. There was quite a few times that in the back of my head, I was wishing that I had a different weapon. And I don't, and I'm sure coming from your background that, you know, like you said a minute ago, I'm sure that really helps you have a certain rules of engagement, I guess, for lack of a better term. But for me, and I think for a lot of people who have been successful with a compound for, you know, 10 years, 15 years, whatever, that's a really tough pill to swallow. And, you know, I applaud you for having the mindset that you do, because that's certainly not an easy thing. It's not easy for me, and I've gotten a lot better at it. And, you know, last year in Colorado, we watched a really good bull inside compound range and watched him walk over the ridge and take off down into the trees. So, and we made it just fine.
And maybe part of me being able to deal with it is, you know, coming from being in the teams with a rifle, if it was inside of 350 or 400, sure, that's a chip shot. Like, hand it over, buddy, especially with a scope. Like, come on, you know. So taking a compound, just taking the leap to a compound, and then Dudley telling me, like, yeah, you need to shoot it inside of 40 with the groups you're doing at 20. You know, a bear, right? And it needs to be broadside. Like, you know, he had a whole bunch of, like, this list of shit, right? Like, you need to be this, and this. I'm like, 40, geez, like, I could shoot a dog with a pistol at 50. Like, come on, 40. So maybe having to take the leap to the compound from shooting a rifle for, you know, 10 years makes it a little more reasonable for me to think, like, okay, I have to get to 25. Like, okay, I understand.
It's not that big of a difference, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So in your former profession, you know, the adrenaline, the heart rate, you know, keeping your shit together, so to speak. Does that help you in getting close to animals and staying, you know, staying in the moment?
Absolutely. I just like probably almost everybody else, after I take that first shot, you know, all the adrenaline and everything else starts flooding through the system. But man, I can stay calm and super lucky with that reality. Like I can just sit there, pull back, work through the process, and hammer away. And it's but after, you know, I probably look just like everybody else, like, oh my god, I got one.
That's the biggest toolbox, in my opinion, that a bow hunter can have, or the biggest tool, the best tool that a bow hunter can have in his toolbox, regardless of form or whatever. If you can keep your shit together, that is the number one biggest thing, because it doesn't matter how good of a shot you are or how good of form you have. If you can't keep your stuff together, you're pretty well hosed from the get-go.
Well, and the thing is, like, you know, if you're shooting what high plate groups at 20 at home, but you can keep your shit together and shoot high plate groups at 20 in the field with something staring at you, you're way better than somebody that shoots, you know, baseball sized groups at 30, but can't hit anything at 20 in the field because they lose their shit.
100%.
That is the untold story right there, because everybody
everybody's great at home, like, oh, I'm in my backyard with a cup of coffee. Like, yeah, no shit.
You just said it right there. You know how I practice for in the moment shots is to drink coffee, too much coffee, because I usually do, and then go try to get a clean release, man. I look like I'm Mr. Magoo out there. I got freaking arrows all over the place. So what's it like? Black Rifle Coffee Company ought to have a tagline, you know, clean release.
Clean release train.
Clean release training.
There you go. I was just going to say, being able to have that tool in your toolbox going into this is such a huge thing, because, you know, even living in Texas and getting as many opportunities as I've had growing up to draw a bowback on a critter, it still took me, you know, 10 or 15 years to really feel like I finally got it figured out.
Yeah.
And, you know, I can think about a lot of opportunities that I squandered, thinking back and not being able to even remember really what happened.
Yeah. And, you know, maybe the other thing is the amount that I practice. Like I don't have any concern about my proficiency. The same thing with a compound. Like, man, I shoot a shit. Like a lot. You know, I'm shooting at least 50 to 100 arrows with the trad bow now a day. And then somewhere in that range for the compound too. And I just don't have any fear about it. It's there. So maybe that's part of, and stay kind of chill. Like if I'm keeping the number at the distance I say I have to shoot at, then all right, cool, I can connect with that.
Confidence.
You know, I just heard it said that somebody said it about 3 weeks ago, and it's kind of the first time I've heard it, and I've heard it since then, is that, you know, target panic, rushing the shot, you know, heart rate, a lot of that has to do with lack of confidence. And I never correlated the two. Like, you know, you don't get target panic shooting at 10 yards. But when you're back at 45 and 50 yards, you know, just not Hail Marrying, but, you know, you're shooting further, that's when, like, you tense up. And I've never correlated the two until somebody brought that up. I think it was Aaron first said it, but I've heard it since then.
Well, and, you know, coming from teaching combat shoot, like I've taught combat shooting for years, and you know what I tell people, and it frustrates the crap out of them. And I say the same thing with shooting the bow. Also, it aggravates people is, you know, it doesn't change the size of the target and the size of your arrow. It doesn't matter. Like if you're shooting something this big, it's this big, period. And if all you're focusing on is that, and executing the shot, it'll go exactly where it's supposed to go.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good stuff. You know, going back to the heart rate thing, I'll take it one step further. I always say that one of the hardest skills as a bow hunter to learn is blood trailing. And the minute you got string drops, you know, if you hold yourself together to the point of the string dropping, you make a hit, and then you fall apart. That's when really bad decisions get made. You know, and within 20 minutes, you've got 100 square yards out in front of you, just all tracked up. You're running around frantic looking for blood. But yeah, I always encourage new bow hunters to like really stop after you take the shot and try to get squared away.
Well, and stop and watch where the animal goes, and then start thinking like that animal.
Yeah. Have you been on any tough tracks yet?
Yeah, actually, that first year after I shot this bear, I had 2 bear tags. I shot another bear, a bigger boar, and we actually ended up tracking him for almost a half mile through some super thick brush, and then through like 6 foot tall blowdown, full on nightmare scenario. It took us forever, and we actually didn't end up recovering him because we ran into a grizzly bear that was blood trailing the same bear. But man, that was frustrating because I knew I hit him good, and like we found lung blood, like we found all the right pieces were there. You know, a shit ton of blood. I'm like pools like this every time he stopped. You know, and it was everywhere. And it took us hours tracking through that nasty stuff, and it was frustrating. And it still eats at me that I didn't recover that animal. I mean, I know the grizzly bear ate him, but it still bothers me.
Yeah. Tracking is fat. Everybody, we all aim for a quick kill. What's it? Blake didn't go 20.
Yeah. Didn't go 20.
Didn't go 20. That's the goal. But man, I love blood trailing. It's you're uncovering the mystery, right? And
Yeah,
I gotta imagine again in your past profession kind of plays into some of that.
It does. People go down a lot faster, but we did taught how to track. Actually, when I was out at the team in Hawaii, we had a guy come out who was he was born and raised in what used to be Rhodesia, and he had learned how to track people there during the Bush War. So we got to take a human tracking class from a person that had tracked people when his life depended on it. And I didn't think that it would ever really pay forward, but man, it definitely did. And I mean, this last year, this mule deer was not hard to track because he was bleeding like a sieve and on a scree field full of rocks. So you can't lose him in the middle of the day.
Stevie Wonder could have followed it.
Yeah, pretty much. He didn't go very far.
That tracker you guys took that class from, that isn't one of the that isn't a character in Jack Carr's books, novels, is it?
No, but so he and I have similar interests. So actually, I have like 3 books here in the house about Rhodesia and the Sella Scouts. That guy was a Sella Scout, and that taught us how to track. And it's some cool shit. You know, you're talking like they're tracking humans through the jungle. When lions, literal lions and leopards chasing them too. Like, not only do you have to like chase bad guys, but there's animals that don't give a shit and they're eating everything.
Man, I got to tell you, you just said lions, and have you ever heard of Sasha Shamil? I got to send you a link. You talk about a fascinating story. Bounty hunting tigers in the jungle with a spear. Dude, I'm gonna look that up and send you a link. It is fascinating.
Yeah, that's wild.
Guiding. So you're working on becoming a guide?
I am through Cole Kramer up on Kodiak. So if you haven't heard of that dude, look him up because he's pretty cool. Moved up there from Kansas when he was 18, and he's been guiding up there for 18 years. He currently he guided the world record archery brown bear hunt.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one to learn from for sure.
Yeah, and he and I get along really well, so we're always, getting drinks together.
So when do you start that?
Getting drinks or no guiding? I'll be up there Friday actually. So we're guiding, or I'm assistant guiding a mountain goat hunt with him on Friday. Flying back here to go up to Montana to chase bulls, then going back for more mountain goats.
That'll be awesome, man. I'm jealous.
I'm stoked. It's a lot of work, but man, is it fun. Like, and there's no pressure. Well, I mean, there's a little bit of pressure, but I don't have to pull the trigger. I don't have to pull the bow. I'm just like, that one. Yep, that one. Got it.
Just animal behavior, glassing, things like that. And I'm sure judging animals is a huge part of that as well.
And then, what else has been cool to learn is like the right way to skin and deflesh in the field, and how best to butcher and get the most meat, and how to do it quickly and efficiently, and then how to get it all in your pack. What are the logistics? And it's all paying it back into my own personal hunting. Like this last mule deer hunt last week, I did totally solo. So I was able to then take the information I've learned from some of these guides that I've either worked with or hunted with, and then put it right into my own hunting. And it didn't feel uncomfortable to be a solo high country mule deer hunter within 2 years with a bow.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. The amount of information from all angles that you're getting in such a short period of time is wild. But yeah, I can't even imagine how cool that is.
It is. And man, like when you guys asked me to be on, I am more than happy to share everything. And because it's been paid forward to me so hard that I can never pay that back. And the best thing I can do is learn from the best people, be a new guy, like go and be a brand new assistant guide, screw it up, do it right, but learn how to do it well so that in the future I can pay it forward too.
Yeah. I always find, I find the sub stories, this like, you just started bow hunting, but what draws you to a traditional bow? Now you mentioned hunting the hard way, and if you and I, if we're alike at all, it's a book like that, like kindles my fire when you read, when you read something and it just speaks to you and it just drives you to like, I want to do that,
and it really does. And like, watching videos of Larry Jones, or more recently watching videos of South Cox hunting mule deer, like the amount of times they blow frickin' stalks just because of bad luck, because you're with a stick and string with a trad bow and you have to get within 60, 70 feet, and they're still loving it and they're getting that close. Like immediately I'm watching all these and like, I have to do this. This seems so cool.
And it's the ultimate satisfaction whenever it finally comes together, man. It really is.
Yeah. And again, you not being a hunter, not growing up in a hunting environment, find all those little sub stories within the story to be fascinating.
Yeah. And all of it really is. And it's things as far down the rabbit hole that I didn't think I'd be getting, as like butchering and processing everything at home. Like I'm making my own jerky and sausage and bratwurst and everything else here at home.
Yeah, it just makes the whole thing all kind of come together and piece itself together.
It really does. And it's cool to be able to share that stuff with people that have never had, say, game meat. And I know that I saw that thing from the time it was breathing till I handed it to them.
Yeah. That was a big one for me. I don't know, a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, there seemed to be a push or some kind of pushback on wild game or hunting or something. And gosh, it must have been somebody, acquaintance. I don't know. It could have been a relative or something, kind of poked me about, how can you kill something or kill? And it's like, are you kidding me? Because that burger that you're eating or that steak or that fish, you have no idea how it was treated, right?
Yep.
I mean, you have no idea um, physically how it was handled. You know nothing about that, and you're eating it. I mean, all you got to do is go to Walmart or go in town, and you see how like people handle themselves and cleanliness. And pretty sure somebody was working on maybe they didn't go, maybe they used the bathroom and didn't wash their hands.
And you know what is like? I bet hunters have more Tupperware and stored items at their house because they try and keep the leftovers. Like, no, I can save this little piece. I really can, of whatever it is. Than other people that aren't necessarily as worried about treating the food ethically. They're just like, there's only a little bit left. I'll toss it.
Yeah, because they didn't work for it.
Nope.
When you got to carry it out of a hole on your back, and
Man, yeah, that mule deer is getting eaten all the way. I have the bones in the freezer for bone broth.
Did you take that out one shot?
I did. Yeah. Might have been a stupid choice, but I mean, I'm young enough and still kind of stupid. So it's okay.
I still make bad decisions. I think you're younger than me. I still make bad decisions. So.
Yeah, I mean, there was a couple points where, once I got home, I weighed it, and it was like 122 pounds. And there was a few times on the hill where it definitely felt like it weighed that
much. That's it. Yeah, you get that going. That's forward momentum. What are you shooting for arrows? What are you shooting for broadheads on your stick bow?
So right now I have gold tip traditionals for arrows, the 400 weight or the 400 spines. And then broadheads, I have two different kinds that I'm trying, and they're both still flying great. The VPA, the cut on contacts, 200 grains, and then the Grizzly Stick single bevel 200 grain cut on contacts with the the chisel tip.
Yep, those are good broadheads. Those are both stout broadheads.
Yeah, and I figured, and that was something else. Is I'm coming into this I'm not shooting a whitetail, right? So I made all my initial decisions knowing I'm potentially shooting a 500 to 800 pound animal. Like this could be a really big animal, and I want to make sure that this does the correct job. That one, the animal deserves it, and also I am unwilling to take a shot and then not recover an elk.
Yeah, that's a lot.
What kind of poundage are you shooting on your bow, and what's your arrow weight thereabouts anyway?
I think so. The arrow weight's like 630 grain total, and I'm shooting. Well, at 30 inches, I'm shooting like about just over 60 pounds, probably 62 or so.
Oh, damn, that's pretty stout. Did you start out that heavy, or did you kind of work your way into it?
Yep, I started out that heavy.
See, you're smart like me.
You and I are horrible examples because I did the same thing.
Granted, I'm very fit. I've been shooting that compound a lot for the last 2 years, and I pull a 70+ pound compound.
Right.
So, yeah, stacking and everything else, but like at peak weight, the amount of arrows I've been shooting with the compound, I felt relatively comfortable. I took it pretty easy the first month that I was shooting that recurve. And now it feels pretty comfortable to go out and shoot. I mean, I can go out and shoot a string of 70 arrows without feeling too tired.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll be shooting through stuff from asshole to appetite with that setup.
That is the goal. I really.
No, I might have missed. Was this your first elk hunt?
No. So I actually, it'll be my first archery elk hunt.
Okay.
I got an elk last year on a depredation tag on a friend's ranch here in Utah. And it was in the snow. It was like, December 29th. It was 4 degrees outside, and there was like 5 feet of snow. And I asked him if I could archery hunt. He goes, "Yes, but please don't bring your bow. I have a rifle. You can shoot it with the rifle." And it's his property. It's his tag. And, he transferred it to me. I got it. I get it. because it was super sparse brush and 5 feet of snow. And I'm like, yeah, they're going to hear us coming. He goes, hey. So we got within like 250 yards and got her. It was a cow.
I don't know. There's something about those December cows, at least around here. Man, they are good eating.
Oh, my Lord. She's huge, too. She was like 500 plus. She was gigantic.
Really? Oh, that is some good victuals.
It took 3 of us to get her into my truck.
Yeah.
So what kind of aiming method are you using with the Stickbow? Are you instinctive, split vision? What have you kind of gravitated towards?
So I guess I'm doing like a combination of gap and split vision. So I pretty much do that with pistol shooting anyways. Like I can see that front sight and the target, right? And kind of waver back and forth. We focus on the front sight for pistol, but it really made sense. That kind of split vision gap really made sense to me. And I'm also anchoring relatively high, trying to get that gap as tight as possible at 20. That was going to be my range. So I made a lot of decisions based on my maximum range for that elk. I was like, all right, cool. So, if I do this and this and this, and now the gap's about 10-ish inches, maybe 8 at 20. Like the point's about 8 or 10 inches low. That's a relatively tight gap at 20.
Yes,
20,
it's definitely
22,
is.
And that makes the point on about 30-ish. Just under 30, 27 and a half. So for me, that really makes it fantastic, because then it's like, all right, aim at the bottom of the heart from 20 to 30, and you're just going to hammer the crap out of it, and aim somewhere underneath the heart for 15 and out, and you'll still hammer the crap out of it. So that's why I made that decision, and that's why I've been aiming like that.
Yeah, and that's pretty similar to me. I pretty much do the same thing, and I have a high anchor as well to try and get that point on down. And there's something to be said about trying to tailor your aiming method to the range that you want to be shooting. Especially first getting into it, instinctive is one of those things that takes a lot of repetition. And if you can kind of shorten your learning curve a little bit by getting that point on and getting that point up into your sight picture, it really helped me a bunch.
Yeah, and it made sense coming from shooting a rifle and a pistol. Like, man, sure as shit, I can tell you exactly how far under and over to hold a rifle or a pistol at any given range. And so when I picked up the Stickbow, I'm like, oh, that's easy. Like, no sweat. I got that. I understood. Now, granted, I said that, and then initially at 7 yards, I'm like, cool, so I can sort of hit the target.
Yeah, I think certain people just gravitate towards certain aiming methods, however their brain works, whether that's instinctive or they have to have the point on the target at all times using some kind of crawl or something like that. I think it really depends on your mindset. Have you struggled any with target panic with the Stickbow?
Nope. And not with compound either. And I think that comes from having shot, hundreds of thousands of rounds of pistol and rifle on timers in competition, teaching people how to do it in front of 50 to 100 people, and then learning from Dudley, the correct process, and then having to shoot in front of guides, in front of him, on tape, on camera. I don't know, my personality is catered to it, but I think I've been able to just bypass the issue so far.
Yeah, that's one thing I was gonna ask, is if I didn't know how much that mindset translated for you from one to the other. So just to dive a little bit deeper down into that. So when you're out towards your point on, that's where people, including me, start to have problems with target panic, because you're trying to micromanage your aim to keep the point right on what you're wanting to shoot. So just out of curiosity, what's kind of going through your head whenever you're shooting? Say your point on's 30 and you're shooting at 30. What's going through your head, and what's your mental process whenever you're shooting that shot?
Yeah, so I do the same sort of process every time with the compound or the recurve. Obviously, they're mechanically different, but say it's hand position on the bow, lock my lat down, bring it up, get a little bit of pre-tension, get that pre-aim, bring it all the way back. Okay, and if it's point on at 30 and I'm at 30, I'm like, and the point's there, pull, 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 bang. For me, I understand coming from shooting off rifle for stress courses.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm in like, my heart's cranking at 150 and I'm like, and I'm shooting a 200-yard shot with a red dot and I'm like, boom, and then back to just breathing. I understand that thing's doing this on the target, and I'm tracing like a figure 8 if you're just listening to this. But the reality is, if you're following your process, your brain and the back end of your brain, and something that Tom Plum has said, like your subconscious brain, man, I understood what he was saying because I've seen that rifle and pistol shooting. If your process is correct, there is no panic if you're like, well, it's where it's supposed to be, kind of. And where it's supposed to be, kind of, is supposed to be about the size of a heart, right? Or so. And if that's the process that you're telling yourself and you've habituated your brain and your subconscious to understand that, then when you get to that correct spot, if it's not happening, you're just going to let down. And if it is happening, you're going to complete the action and go ahead and let it rip.
Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
That is fascinating. Now, would you put that in the category of muscle memory?
I put that into neurologic pathway and habituation, not necessarily muscle. Rogue neurological pathways are really what are called muscle memory. And you need to be very careful when you're practicing skills like this that end up becoming subconscious, because you are creating a habit circle, a thing that you want to do, followed by a thing you have to do to make it happen, followed by a reward. And your brain is an efficiency machine. And if you create that cycle incorrectly or poorly, you're just going to continue doing it until you overlap it with something else.
Oh, that's good stuff.
And it really, knowing that stuff coming from shooting rifle and pistol from some incredible world-class shooters and being taught how to shoot that way and understanding the mentality going behind it, it gives me the opportunity to say, go outside. Now, my lifestyle lends itself to this, but I can go outside in the morning and shoot. And if I'm shooting like crap, I'm not going to continue shooting, because I know that I'm doing something mechanically wrong. It's not the bow, it's me. So I'll just put it down and I'll come back later, reassess, and do it again. Because if you just continue, you're continuing to do something wrong. You're reinforcing whatever that is. Practice makes permanent.
Is reinforcing bad habits.
Yeah, or whatever the habit is. And I know Tom Plum has said it. He's like, if you're shooting really tight groups, but your form is like crap, like it doesn't matter. We can fix that. Like we can tune the bow to make it happen. But why do that? Why not just come into it perfect?
Right.
And that's the advantage of going to a good coach from square one. I mean, a guy like me learned how to shoot, just in the backyard, grip it and rip it. And, he struggled with bad habits for years.
Yeah. I've been very, very, very fortunate. I mean, how many people can legitimately say that they could have been interested in you shooting a stick bow and then shot Aaron a message and for him to reply in 20 minutes? Yeah, good luck. Or for me to have a fletching question, like I'm sitting there fletching arrows and I'm like, hey, Dudley, like on the phone, hey, can you walk me through how to do X, Y, and Z? And he goes, oh, yeah, cool. Just look here and here and here. Yeah, come on. I know that I'm that fortunate. And that's why it's cool to come and talk about some of the stuff that I've been passed along, like the mental stuff or the neurologic stuff or how to practice, why to practice. Those are things that I can pass on, just like those guys pass that stuff on to me.
And just by you coming on here, and this is really why we wanted to get you on here, is it inspires others. I got my buddies all shoot compound. No problem with it. But for a guy like you to come on and say, yeah, I wanted to take it to the next level and this is what I'm doing, and just telling the story, it might, inspire others to take the leap and give it a try.
Yeah, and they really should, because it's a really cool piece of equipment. People have been doing it for thousands of years. It's really freaking rad. But it's also kind of selfishly cool to go out to the range and they're shooting compounds at 40 and you're hitting the exact same target at the same distance.
Yeah, I saw the group you posted the other day. You posted it, and it was a group at, I don't know, I think it was 37 or 38 yards. It was about an 8-inch group or so. And you said, "Gosh, I need more practice." And I replied back to it, and I was like, "Dude, that's better than 90% of stickbow shooters." And it really is. I wasn't bullshitting you on that. It really is. That speaks to, and it made a huge difference for me as well. The amount of information that's out there now, if you will take it and use it correctly, the way that it's intended to be soaked up, this sport, or this journey, if you want to call it that, is very easily digestible if you've got the right mindset going into it and absorb the information the way that it's intended to be absorbed. And
Absolutely.
You're a perfect example of that, because like I told you on Instagram, that's pretty high level shooting for somebody who hasn't been shooting one for very long.
Yeah, it's been, on the good days, it's been really great. Like 8 or 10-inch circles at 40 or 45, or it's not that's no issue. Like, and in 20, I'm putting softball size groups, like with only aiming for that like 2-ish seconds, and I'm really trying to focus on that, like, heart-shaped target. And maybe part of it is I just understand how to practice, and I know how much I need to practice, and that consistency is key, and I literally shoot every day, and that I'm going to be connecting on an animal. There's a date. I have to be there. I have to be ready, and not just for me, but for Jeff. I owe it to him, because he's going to be hunting too, and he's going to be calling elk in for me.
Yeah, this is great stuff for people to hear, man. You've got the perfect mindset, and
he's going to be whooping Snyder soon. I think you're going to be whooping Snyder.
I'm nipping at his heels. I hadn't beat him yet.
We need somebody in this community to whoop Snyder. So, Trevor, get after it, man.
I'm still little, too. I'm a little guy. He'd probably kick my ass if he got a hold of me.
Well, that's all right. Just outshoot him. Just outshoot him.
Speedy. I'm real fast.
Oh, that's funny.
Man, you got anything you want to add for inspirational quotes like Trevor Thompson?
Nah. I mean, thanks for having me on. Anybody that listens to this, like, if you find me on Instagram, like, I will respond. I try my best. Ask questions and take your time practicing whatever the skill is, and understand that your application of the skill shows the lowest level of proficiency you have. So get really proficient at whatever that skill is. When you execute, you're going to be as good as you are on your shittiest day.
That's right. Very well put.
And where can they find you?
So on Instagram, it's trevor.p.thompson.
Cool, man.
And the podcast, Free Range American?
Free Range American. Yep. Right, and I'm on there on a pretty regular basis.
Right on. I may have been listening to you at work. I might have been, although we're not allowed to listen to stuff like that at work. I might have been. You guys were talking to a mountaineering dude.
Oh yeah, Mark's a good friend of mine.
Yeah. That was fun.
Yeah, he's a super rad guy. He might be one of the most interesting humans in the world.
It sounds like he's done some stuff. Dang.
Well, cool, man. We'll have to wrangle Snyder up and go shoot sometime or something. Go to that American Bowman course up there in Colorado.
Let's do it. I'll make my way out there.
Cool, man.